There's a reason you can walk past a stranger on the street, catch half a second of their perfume, and suddenly remember someone from 10 years ago you hadn't thought about in years. Scent is wired directly into memory, more directly than anything you see or hear. A single note can pull up an entire moment, a person, a room, a feeling, before you even realize what's happening. That means the perfume you wear isn't just something people smell. It's something people remember, whether they ever learn your name or not. Today, I'm giving you 10 perfumes built specifically for that. 5 for women, 5 for men, each one unforgettable for a completely different reason. Before we get into the list, here's why this actually works the way it does. And it's worth understanding for a second. Your sense of smell is the only one of your 5 senses connected directly to the part of your brain responsible for memory and emotion, without passing through the same filtering process your other senses go through first. That's genuinely different from how sight or sound work. It's part of why a random smell can instantly transport you back to a specific moment. A childhood kitchen, a person you haven't thought about in years, faster and more vividly than almost anything else could. So when you wear a perfume that's genuinely distinct, you're not just choosing something that smells nice. You're choosing what someone's brain will quietly attach to the memory of meeting you. We're splitting this evenly. 5 perfumes for women, 5 for men, and for every single one, I'll tell you exactly what makes it the kind of scent people ask about, not just notice. By the end, you'll know exactly which one fits the impression you actually want to leave behind. We're opening with a perfume that announces itself before you even see the bottle. Good Girl is instantly recognizable, partly because of its bottle, shaped like a black stiletto, and partly because of what's inside it. Tuberose and cocoa come together to create something rich, warm, and genuinely powerful in how far it projects. This isn't a perfume that politely waits in the background. It fills a room in the best possible way. It plays with contrast on purpose, sweet and dark at the same time, delicate and bold at the same time. The same duality captured right there in the bottle's design itself, elegant on top, unapologetic underneath. That contrast is exactly why people remember it. It doesn't behave the way they expect a floral to behave. There's also something worth noting about how it wears over time. Most perfumes soften considerably a few hours after application, fading into something quieter. This one holds its structure remarkably well, meaning the impression it leaves at the start of an evening is often still recognizable hours later, which is exactly the kind of consistency that turns a perfume into a genuine signature rather than a passing impression. Next is Angel. And to understand why this one matters, you have to understand what perfume smelled like before it existed. Before Angel, most women's perfumes lived in floral or fresh territory. Then Mugler released something built around patchouli, chocolate, and caramel, a genuinely sweet, gourmand fragrance nobody had really attempted at this scale before. It didn't just become popular, it created an entirely new category that perfumers are still building on decades later. Wearing Angel today still carries some of that original shock value. It smells like dessert and mystery at the same time, warm and a little dangerous. People who encounter it for the first time almost always ask what it is, because there's genuinely nothing else that smells quite like it. What's genuinely remarkable is how many perfumes released in the decades since have quietly borrowed from what Angel started. Once you know what to look for, you can trace its influence through dozens of gourmand fragrances that came after it, all trying to capture some version of that same warm, sweet, slightly rebellious feeling. Very few original perfumes get to say they didn't just succeed, staying with Mugler, but moving into something completely different in tone. Alien is built around jasmine sambac and warm amberwood, and it carries a strange, radiant quality that's hard to fully describe until you've smelled it. It doesn't feel like a typical floral, and it doesn't feel like a typical woody scent either. It exists somewhere in between, glowing rather than blooming. The bottle plays a role in the memory too, a faceted purple star that people recognize sitting on a vanity from across the room. Refillable, so it becomes a genuine long-term object rather than something thrown away. Between the scent and the bottle, this is a perfume built to be remembered as much through sight as through smell. Now for a perfume with a reputation that precedes it. Poison earned its name honestly. It's one of the strongest projecting perfumes ever released by a major house. Deep, spiced, and intense enough that a single spray can carry through an entire room for hours. It was actually controversial when it launched, and some public spaces even limited how much of it people could wear. That kind of reputation doesn't happen by accident. Poison represents perfume at its most confident, unwilling to shrink itself to be more convenient for anyone else. If good girl fills a room, Poison claims it entirely. There's something worth understanding about why this level of intensity became such a defining moment in perfume history. Poison arrived at a time when fragrance was starting to move toward lighter, more universally palatable scents, and it deliberately went in the opposite direction. That kind of confidence, refusing to soften itself to please everyone, is exactly what turned it into a legend instead of just another release. Closing out the women's side with the most modern name on this list, La Vie Est Belle built its identity around iris and praline, a combination that manages to feel both elegant and comforting at the same time. It's become one of the most recognized fragrances of the last 15 years, the kind of scent that develops an almost cult-like following once someone finds it. What makes it memorable isn't shock value the way some of the earlier picks are. It's warmth. People remember how it made them feel standing near someone wearing it, rather than being struck by how unusual it smelled. Sometimes the most unforgettable thing isn't loud. It's just quietly, consistently comforting. Now let's move to the men's side. 5 perfumes. 5 completely different reasons people won't forget them. We're starting with the single most recognized modern men's fragrance on the market today. Sauvage's trail is massive, fresh, and unmistakable, built to be noticed from a distance rather than discovered up close. Part of why it's so memorable is simply how widely it's worn, which sounds like it should work against it, but instead it's created a kind of universal recognition. People know this scent, even people who don't know anything about perfume at all. If you want a fragrance guaranteed to get noticed in almost any room you walk into, this is the safest, most reliable bet on this entire list. There's an interesting effect that happens with a fragrance this widely worn. Instead of becoming forgettable through overuse, it actually becomes a kind of shared reference point. People stop associating it with any one person and start associating it with a feeling instead. Confidence, freshness, someone put together. Wearing it means stepping into that association immediately, even before anyone learns anything else about you. Next is a fragrance built on restraint rather than volume. Bleu de Chanel is versatile enough to wear almost anywhere, yet distinct enough that people specifically stop and ask what it is. Citrus and woody notes combine into something clean and confident without ever feeling generic, which is a harder balance to strike than it sounds. This is the perfume for someone who wants to be remembered for precision rather than intensity. It doesn't overwhelm a room. It simply leaves behind the impression of someone who clearly knows exactly what they're doing. Now for a genuine icon, one with a story worth knowing. This fragrance was created by Francis Kurkdjian at just 26 years old, and it went on to become one of the best-selling men's perfumes in the entire world. Lavender and vanilla combine into something both fresh and warm, instantly recognizable, packaged inside a bottle shaped like a sailor's torso that's just as iconic as the scent itself. Decades after its release, it's still instantly identifiable, which says everything about how well it was built in the first place. Some fragrances fade with trends. This one simply became a permanent fixture. What's genuinely impressive is that this fragrance essentially launched an entire career. Kurkdjian went on to work with major names across the industry before eventually starting his own house. But this remains one of his most recognized creations, proof that a single well-built formula, created at the very start of someone's career, can outlast almost everything that comes after it. Now for something built entirely around impact. Spice Bomb opens with a burst of cinnamon and tobacco that genuinely lives up to its name, explosive, warm, and immediately noticeable the second it's sprayed. It's built for the exact moment we opened this video talking about, walking into a room and being remembered before you've said a single word. The bottle itself is shaped like a grenade, which tells you everything about the intention behind it. This isn't a quiet background fragrance. It's designed specifically to detonate attention, and it does exactly that. And, closing out the list, one of the most consistently complimented men's fragrances of the last decade. La Nuit de l'Homme blends cardamom, bergamot, and cedar into something that manages to feel both fresh and seductive at once. The kind of scent that gets asked about specifically on dates and evenings out. Its reputation has been built almost entirely through word of mouth, one compliment at a time, rather than a single dramatic marketing moment. That's actually the most telling thing about it. The perfumes people talk about the most aren't always the loudest ones. Sometimes, they're simply the ones that consistently make someone feel a little more magnetic than usual, every single time they wear it. There's a reason this specific effect matters more than raw projection alone. A fragrance that overwhelms a room gets noticed once. A fragrance that consistently earns quiet compliments over months and years gets remembered permanently, tied specifically to the person wearing it, rather than just the moment they walked in.